Hey guys, welcome to another Deconstructing Warhammer 40k 6th edition video. We're going to talk about vehicles in this video here. And yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Okay guys, so we're going to go through some of the vehicle changes in 6th edition. So let's take a look here. Hull points is probably one of the newest newest change, right?
Yeah, so that's the biggest change. So in 5th ed, vehicles were, it was very random. If you got a glancing hit, you got -2 on the chart, penetrating hit. You have to go through multiple hits and you just hoped you rolled high to get a vehicle destroyed. Now it's more consistent and I believe nerfed overall, because now every time you take a glancing hit, instead of rolling on the chart as you normally would do for a vehicle destroyed, you know, losing a gun, getting immobilized, now you just take a hull point, which counts as like 1 wound in essence for vehicles.
Right.
So now, like, let's say, okay, like the normal squad would be shooting at a vehicle. Most vehicles have 3 hull points. The big ones would have 4, and then like really small ones like speeders or something would have 2 hull points. But if you shoot and you get a glancing hit, instead of rolling the table, you don't do that at all. Vehicle's unaffected except it loses 1 hull point, typically starting from 3.
Right. And then if you
get 3 hull points, it runs out of hull points, it is now wrecked, and it just falls to ground as before.
So pretty much vehicles have been really nerfed. I mean, we've experienced it with you coming out of turn 1, taking out my 2 Razorbacks, and even a squad of Longfangs. It was crazy.
Yeah, Gauss for Necrons is much better now.
Yeah, so that's the biggest change with I think vehicles, the hull points.
Right. And then also and then if you get a penetrating hit as well, you also get a hull point, and then you roll on the table. Although the table's it's a little harder to deal with.
Yeah, the table actually, I think from what I've seen, really took out the wrecked option.
It took out wrecked, so now
1 and 2.
1 and 2 is shaken, 3 is stunned, 4 is weapon destroyed, 5 immobilized, and 6 explodes.
Okay.
So there's no wreck. So it's really hard to one-shot a vehicle now. But you know, if you do 3 damage to it, it's gone. So yeah, and also for vehicle movement, mostly it's the same. Most vehicles move 6, and you know, you can shoot weapons and whatnot. I'll explain that in a second. The big change is flat out. So now in the shooting phase, as infantry would run, in essence, you would do the same thing with vehicles and go flat out. Usually you'd get to move another 6. Like fast vehicles could go 12, like fast skimmers can go 18 and stuff like that. But yeah, that happens in the shooting phase.
Yeah,
so
you used to have
max
the movement
move.
phase.
Yeah, pretty much your max move in the movement phase is 12 inches. And in shooting phase, you get to add more if you want.
Okay. All right. And you think this change would affect any strategies, tactical?
Well, yeah, because I mean the thing is, in the movement phase, you can move a certain distance, and then in the shooting phase, you can decide how other people are shooting, if that affects what you want to do with this vehicle. So let's say I moved, this stuff moves, and then all my other armies shooting at your stuff. If I wreck that, it's like, oh well, you know, that's already gone, so I can all of a sudden flat out. Whereas you have to make that decision in the movement phase.
Ah, good point.
So it leaves you options in the shooting phase to do stuff.
Okay.
So, and then also another point to make is for shooting with vehicles, it's changed a little bit. Before it was like, okay, you know, if you move 6, you could shoot like 1 weapon and all defensive. There's no more defensive weapons. Now, like let's say stationary, you can shoot all your weapons, bar ordnance, because that's special. But you would shoot all your weapons if you're stationary. If you move cruising speed, which is, you know, usually 6 inches, you can fire 1 main weapon, and all other weapons have the option of snap fire, which, you know, rolls on 6s, but if you're template or blast marker, you can't shoot.
Right.
If you move all the way, like cruising speed on a normal vehicle, you can shoot everything that normally, except it's just snap fire.
Right.
So, whereas before, you just couldn't shoot at all.
And then what about, okay, because now flat out doesn't matter because it happens.
It happens in the shooting phase. So you would either flat out and move it more, or you just stay there and shoot.
Now, in my opinion, I think this is way better because now I get to shoot all the weapons, even though if it's snapshot, at least I get to shoot.
Yeah, at least you get to roll dice and do something. As opposed to, I'm just moving everything up, I moved everything, I can't do anything. All right, your turn.
Okay.
You know, you avoid
and you
that.
think it's a good change?
It's pretty good. It will also affect flyers. It's very handy. I'll talk about that
We'll
when
get
we go
that
to flyers.
into, yeah.
And then going back for a second, just for the vehicle damage table, if you get a glancing hit, you take off 1 hull point. If you get a penetrating hit, you take off 1 hull point. Then you roll on a damage table. Like I said, a 1 or 2 is crew shaken.
Right.
So usually before that means you couldn't shoot at all. Now you can actually snap fire.
Oh, that's right.
It just you know, you cannot shoot very much, but you can always get a couple shots off.
Well, which is good.
Right.
Yeah.
But that only happens on a penetrating hit, mind you.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of these don't come up nearly as much.
Right.
3 is shaken, so the vehicle cannot move next turn, and it can only fire snapshots.
Okay.
4 is weapon destroyed. Instead of the opponent choosing which weapon you want to take off, like let's say you want to take off the biggest cannon possible, you randomize it.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden if you have like 6 weapons on there, it's going to be really hard to take off a battle cannon or something.
Oh, okay, gotcha, yeah, that's true.
Let's see, a 5 is immobilized, which is pretty much standard. And then 6 is explodes, and that works the same as before, but there's just no more wreck.
Right.
And also AP1 weapons, before you would add +1 to the chart. Now you would add +2. And then AP2 weapons add +1 to the chart. So let's say you have a las cannon, you get +1 on the penetrating table. And also AP dash weapons, before it was -1, now it's just flat.
Flat.
Just nothing.
Nothing.
No modifiers.
You said something that it actually does affect the AP, the new AP rules.
Right, because yeah, before, like let's say you take a railgun for Tau, and they shoot and they get a penetrating hit. Before it was just +1 on the table, unless it was open top, then it's +2. And that's the same. Now it's +3 on the table. So if you get a penetrating hit from a railgun, you're blowing up on a 3+.
Gotcha.
So.
Oh, that's crazy.
All right, and then also for cover, same deal. Before, I believe it was 50% of the vehicle had to be covered, and you get a 4+ save. Now you only need 25% of the vehicle, but it's the standard cover save for the game, which is 5+ now.
This is 5+.
Yeah, okay. Straight up 5+. There's also an exception with skimmers. If you move at all with the skimmer, you get a jink save, which means it's evading, so you get a 5+ cover save even if you're out in the open.
Oh, really? For skimmers? So even if I just move an inch?
Which is pretty funny, because if a monolith, scoots half an inch over, it's got a 5+ cover save.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
But hey, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's still weird.
All right, so from like with assaulting, you roll 2d6 and you move in as normal. You get into base contact. The big thing is now it's changed the way you strike vehicles. If the vehicle did not move at all in the previous turn,
right,
it has a weapon skill of 0, so that means you auto hit in close combat, like before. However, if the vehicle moved at all, half an inch or 12, it has weapon skill of 1. So that means almost everybody in the game, well, unless you're really crappy, you would hit on 3+ in close combat.
Okay.
So instead, before it was like stationary auto hit. Moved up to 6, you hit on 4+. If you moved really fast, you'd only hit on 6s. Now you're either auto hitting or hitting on 3+.
Right.
If you assault.
So it's kind of easier to assault vehicles now. Definitely.
Plus, crack grenades work really well.
Right.
Because in each guy, if they have crack grenades, they can throw one at strength 6, and you go against the back armor still.
Yeah.
And you hit on 3+. And then for squadrons, they changed just a little bit now. One of the big things is if you're immobilized, before you count the vehicle as wrecked and move on, now you can actually separate off if this guy gets immobilized. So this would become a unit, and he would stay as a unit by himself. Also, usually you roll to wound on to armor
roll
pen.
To hit. Yeah.
Roll to hit, and then you do armor pen one at a time, like you would wound allocations for normal squads.
Right. So it has to be the closest
so
model.
So you do the first
squadron.
one first, see if it blows up, all that. Then you do one at a time.
Right.
And then it would always go on to the closest squadron. So a trick you can do is, like, let's say this guy takes a whole point in the prior shooting phase. You get to move. You can move him to the back as you move around, and then all of a sudden he's the last one to take hits.
Tricky.
So you can move your one wound back.
That's assuming that your squadron didn't get pulverized.
Yeah, or I mean, yeah, for land speeders they can get blown up pretty easily.
Right.
Okay, so now disembarking is a little bit different. Embarking is the same as before. You move the whole squad within 2 inches of an access point, you jump on. Now, you can only disembark if your vehicle was stationary or you moved up to 6. Now when you get out, you get in base contact, and then you can move within 6 inches of the transport, so or the access point. So you move, and your base cannot be outside of 6 inches. So you would move up to here. Not to here, but fully within. Right. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, and then you can move each guy and staying in coherency.
So, of course, the distance of disembarking is further now, but I guess one of the main gripes of a lot of players now is you can't assault.
Yeah, that's the big thing. For the majority of vehicles, unless you're an assault vehicle, which is also open-topped, but like for typical rhinos, if at the beginning of your turn you're embarked on here, and even if the vehicle did not move and you disembarked, you cannot assault at all that turn. So that's a big nerf to like rhinos, because if you're sitting in your vehicle and you didn't get out, you know, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you jump out and they sit here for a turn, and then I can shoot at them.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you move forward 6 and then they jump out and shoot a little bit, but then you have to risk yourself getting shot back, and then you can assault.
Now, in your opinion, you think there's any way to actually gain the advantage again?
It's going to be hard because they're nerfed. The only debate right now is if the rhino blows up during the shooting phase. Like, let's say this guy destroys this and these guys jump out. I think there's a little bit of raw going on, which it sounds like they cannot assault if they get out on my turn, like the opponent's turn. So like your guys would get out and it's like, oh, well, now it's your turn. But I believe the wording is subsequent, which would be their subsequent assault phase they cannot charge. So their upcoming one, which would be like in a turn and a half, they couldn't assault. So I think that's still how it works. But I mean, we'll have to see what the FAQ says.
Yeah, they're gonna have.
According to Raw, it sounds like they can't assault, which is a real big bummer for rhinos.
Yeah, and that's a lot of people's gripes right now, and probably one of mine too.
Yeah, because all of a sudden rhinos, they have hull points, so they get destroyed easier. Plus, you know, you can't assault out of them very well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's ways to deal with it. I mean, I'm sure someone's gonna find a way to do it.
And then also just one other tidbit, if your vehicle is assaulted by anybody on the ground, the vehicle cannot overwatch, like infantry can. But if there's people inside and they're allowed to shoot out, the guys inside can snap fire for the vehicle and shoot at somebody that's running at you.
So my melted gun just pop up and do a snapshot, and hopefully it'll blow up, right?
Yeah, but you gotta roll 6.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little about flyers, because that's going to be huge in this game. At least I think so. Yeah. Okay, so go for it, Dallas.
So the big new change for 6th edition is the addition of flyers. So a lot of other units had been out. They just released some. Yeah. Typically, if it's on a flying base, it's a flyer. So flyers have to start in reserve. So on second turn, they can come in on a 3+, and the turn after that 3+, and then auto.
Okay, hold on a second. So they have to start in reserve. They can't start on the table anymore?
Yeah.
So IG players have no option but starting?
I believe so.
Okay.
So if you're flying, you got to start in reserve. Declare if you're hovering or zooming. Hovering means that you just count it as a fast skimmer, and it just acts the same way. If it's flying, it's got a whole other set of rules. So it will come in off the board on the first turn. The trick is with flyers, you have to move a minimum of 18 and then a maximum of 36. So for a flyer to come in, you roll a 3+.
Okay.
Then whenever you're moving a flyer, minimum of 18, maximum 36. You have to pivot the flyer on spot, the direction you want to come in at, and then you move up to 18 inches in a straight line, and you cannot pivot anymore. So the big thing is that they're hard to maneuver because they're moving fast.
And this is for all flyers then?
Yeah, if they're zooming.
Oh, if they're zooming.
If they're using their flyer ability to zoom.
Okay.
If they're hovering, then they act as a fast skimmer.
Okay, gotcha.
And then you stay here. Then if you're cruising your combat speed, which is 18 to 36, you get to fire up to 4 weapons normally.
Okay.
The big thing is they can either fire all their weapons as sky fire, which means they can hit other flyers normally, or they can shoot all their weapons normal at the ground. So either way, they're hitting normally. However, shooting at flyers is another deal, because unless you have sky fire rules, you can only snap fire against them. So anything on the table will only hit on 6s. You cannot use blast weapons or templates against them, since you're not allowed to. So a lot of it will be aerial, dogfighting combat, because flyers are a good way to take out other flyers.
So I'm thinking a lot of people waiting for the fact to come in about who gets the flak missiles, right?
Right. Because currently, for normal missile launcher guys, it's an upgrade. They have to pay for a missile launcher to get flak missiles. So there's a little subclause in the missile launcher section. So right now, no codex has it options. Nobody has flak missiles.
Okay, currently. So a lot of people are arguing. It says it in the rule book that
right in the summary table it shows the 3 options. But if you go into the subsection of missile launchers where it's describing weapons, it says it's an option you can take. Currently, nobody has the option, and none of the FAQ said it's now an option for these guys. So I think we're waiting to see what the new codex is, how many points it's going to be.
Hopefully they'll fact it in soon.
So, and then after you move, then the next turn you can only move a max, you can rotate before you start up to 90 degrees. So either like a hard left or a hard right or anything in between, and then you have to move, again, a minimum of 18 inches. And you cannot, you know, so he'd fly off the screen. Let's say he's here. You can, and then you cannot rotate. So it's really hard to line up more shots later on.
Okay.
Because they'll just be zooming around the table. They can also fly off the table, go into ongoing reserves, and they come back in on the table next turn.
Next turn. Now, what I find funny is that if you damage the vehicle while it's zooming, now if you declare zooming coming in, do you have to stay zooming throughout the rest of the game?
No, for that one turn. At the beginning of the movement phase, before you move it, you say, okay, am I going to continue zooming or am I going to go to hover mode?
Now, once you zoom, the next turn, if, for say, I actually hit you with a snapshot, damaged you enough, now you're locked in zooming mode, right?
Yeah, so yeah, if you get I believe it's velocity locked or, I forget the exact wording, but yeah, if it's immobilized, it has to say zooming, and then I think it can only go a certain speed, and shaken has the same deal. It can only move 18 inches and not turn. Okay. So there's some sub clauses. You'll have to look into the rules just to get used to it. But yeah, flyers, the maneuverability is a big thing, but they can't be hurt nearly as well. And then also, if they flat out, I believe they get another 12 to 24 inches if they don't shoot. And supersonic's 36.
So like we're going to be zooming.
For supersonic flyers, yeah, they can move and flat out to what is that, 6 feet?
Wow, yeah. So supersonic is actually a special rule for
it just makes them go faster and flat out.
Well, faster. It just makes them zoom across the field.
Yeah.
Well, just give them teleporters.
And then yeah, if you have a bomber, which this isn't, you just move over a unit and then you drop a bomb as you move over and you resolve the template like normal, I believe.
So for example, if these guys, the Grey Hunter squad was here.
Yeah, then I would have to move over them and then I drop a template where I moved over and then resolve that.
Okay. So they have to be a unit that you moved over. Okay.
So I know a lot of people have been talking about how do I deal with flyers? What happens if my opponent shows up with all flyers? The easiest.
That's my question because I don't have any flyers.
Yeah, because flak missiles, so almost nobody has Skyfire except Imperial Guard. So the easiest one is fortifications. So almost every fortification has some sort of Skyfire, either like an Icarus las cannon, or I think it's a quad gun that they can take. So they have Skyfire.
So I got to slot in a fortification.
If you're really concerned about that, that's the easiest way.
That's one of the things I thought was really dumb, but
yeah,
fortifications, but whatever.
But you can take guns on them, and you get your own cover too.
Okay.
So that's one option. The other option that I really like is either volume of fire or twin linking. So like let's say Cyphelman Dread for Grey Knights, since they get 4 shots, they hit on 6s, they get to re-roll all those missed 6s. So in essence, you get like 8 rolls to see if you get 6s, and then flyers are usually weakly armed. So you only have to do a few hits, and usually they go down.
So got those twin las cannons on those Razorbacks if they survive long enough to shoot?
Yeah. But remember, that's only 2 shots.
Yeah.
Like auto cannons are the best.
Right.
Ludas are good because you go from hitting on 5s to hitting on 6s. That's not a big deal. Tesla, like my Annihilation Barches are really good because if you roll 6, they're twin linked, so I get to reroll, and then I get more hits. So that's another good way of messing with them, or rapid firing. Because if you are really close with like these guys and their guns are strong enough, you can damage flyers like in the back.
Well, for example, what is the armor?
Well, for this one, it's just 11 all around, so your guys won't be able to hurt it. But a lot of flyers are 10 in the back, so you could rapid fire them. And you're just throwing so many shots. And remember, you only need 3 whole points, and then he's wrecked.
Good point. So it's just laying down the dice on these things.
Correct. Plus, I think there's like a couple psychic powers, but usually if it like rolls to auto hit, it doesn't typically work against flyer like templates.
Right.
So the best deal, or you bring your own flyers too, because then they come in, you come in and blast them out of the sky. Or you can take allies. So if you're really paranoid, you could take Imperial Guard and put a Hydra in the back and 2 fortifications, and then you're pretty much set.
Well, there you go.
And some Valkyries or something.
Oh yeah, that'll work.
Games Workshop wants you to buy stuff. So
yeah, so good tactic there.
Mm-hmm. And then also they came out, Games Workshop came out with a new type of vehicle, which is a chariot, like a command barge for Necrons. So now you can do a sweep attack like it could before. If I moved over a unit, 12 inches or whatever, I get to hit him 3 times on a 4+ if I move fast. 3s if not, with his weapon. However, it's a vehicle that can charge into combat like a walker, except it's not technically locked in combat, but the Chariot inflicts D6 impact hits. Well, I call them impact hits since I'm playing fantasy, but they're in essence D6 Hammer of Wrath hits, which is strength 6 AP dash against the unit at initiative 10. Then if he's touching any of these guys, he can swing at them as well. They can swing back at the guy riding it or the vehicle itself.
Okay.
So right now it's a little vulnerable because you still hit the back armor on 3+.
Right. Okay.
So the Chariot can easily be destroyed as it charges into combat.
Yeah,
but there's a bunch of stuff. It's like what happens if you destroy the Chariot before the guy on top gets to swing? Is he still in base contact? Even though he's not locked in combat, does he disembark and move away? Does he disembark and stay in contact? There's a little bit of minor things, so you have to work that out. Work that out with your group until you get the FAQs, just because it's confusing the way you're in combat, but you're not in combat. So
yeah, that's a big thing. Now, on walkers, really not much has changed on walkers. Really, the only difference is how you fight in close combat with a vehicle. As well, walkers can do Overwatch, but other than that, that's it for
and then
walkers.
and then like penetrating hits, glancing hits, combat.
Yeah, it's combat res, just like any vehicles. When you pen, that's 2 combat resolutions.
Okay.
When you glance, it's 1 combat resolution. Same thing. Only difference is walkers don't fall back, just like in 5th edition and stuff like that.
Gotcha. So the big thing is there's a small, well, it's not a huge change, just searchlights were confusing before. Now with night fighting, it's usually you get better cover saves. Now after a vehicle fires all its weapons at a target, it has to be within 36 inches to see, but if you can see it, usually get a cover save, you shoot at it, then it can use a searchlight, which then means, my vehicle would be illuminated, therefore I don't get any bonus cover saves from night fighting.
Now, as long as I hit, then I could light you up, right?
No, I believe it's just if you fire at it.
By the wording?
I believe the wording says that if it's its target and it can be seen, so that means you're within 36, it automatically becomes illuminated for the rest of that turn.
So it sounds like searchlights actually became more useful with the new
because before you'd have to roll your distance, and if you didn't see, you count as your searchlighting going all over the place.
Yeah. So now
so
that
you might have to go through multiple searchlights. Now you can pre-measure. So if you're within 36, you can automatically get a searchlight off.
Okay. So that is kind of important. If you have searchlight, maybe it is a good option to buy now because night fighting might kick in the first turn and then the last few turns.
And remember, all the standard missions have night fighting in them, which is on a 4+. So you're going to be running into night fighting a lot more.
Okay. And that's it, guys, for this video. So do you have any final thoughts about the vehicles?
Overall, I think they're just going to be weaker with hull points. Before, you'd see terminal armies, everything was in a vehicle. You had to get through vehicles. Now that's a big liability because if they get glanced and they start wrecking. So I think it's just going to be a meta shift over time from all vehicles in the really hardcore armies to a lot more troops, which I think is kind of the way it should be. You should have some support vehicles, but I don't think your army should be completely vehicles unless that's what you really like to play.
Now I'm seeing a lot of what I'm imagining. We're going to see a lot of aerial combat.
Plus, flyers are going to get powerful just because there's not very many Skyfire options right now. So, you'll see a lot more flyers. You got to be able to deal with them. Like before, it's like, how does your army deal with armor 14? Now, another, question when you're building your army, how am I going to deal with any flyers?
Right.
But it just depends how hardcore people are going to get with it. So.
Okay. Well, that's it, guys. We'll have another deconstruction video coming soon right at you. So, again, blah, blah, blah on the like, sub, and favorite, and share, and what have you. And thank you very much, Dallas.
Yep. Thanks, guys.